I see so many businesses right now that what they're doing is doing what they've always done, only trying to do it faster and harder, and they just get on this treadmill. It reminds me of these little hamsters in a cage that are just turning the wheel and never really getting anywhere. And it seems to me that those of you in the room and many of the ones that are being successful are actually taking a step back and saying, okay, what do I need to do differently to adjust? The strategy is dynamic, and that if the market environment in which we're changing, our meaningful outside is changing, then we need to adjust to that. Doesn't mean we totally change our business model, but how can we change our message? Or how can we be of more support to our target customer in new and different ways? Or how can we be more support internally to our employees? And how do we make those adjustments? So planning is still a big part of succeeding in a tough environment. It's just kind of switching, adapting the plan you have to one that is more appropriate for the times that we're in at the moment.
Margaret, it is so important to plan, yet we have, as business leaders in America, a low tolerance for planning. We love jumping in the car and start off somewhere and then say, where's the map? Versus,
quick, put it in the
yeah,
GPS.
quick, let's do it. and
I know the first few miles, I know which way to go.
Yeah.
Let's just get in there
somebody
and get going.
get the GPS.
Yeah.
That's why you're in the ditch,
That's
Tom.
right. Until you get a lot of backseat advice, and then, well, wait a minute, maybe I didn't know so much. I better stop here and get the map.
You just made another comment that I think is absolutely right. We tend to want to fix things fast. Leaders love to fix things, but it's really a time to step back. And one thing that I found that's different for me today, and it's through many mergers over time in larger organizations, was the importance of understanding who you are and then who your team is. And you can do that in a lot of different vehicles, but to me, we said we're going to be a different bank. Well, we had to understand who we were. And it helps you strategically to communicate better. And it also creates that work environment people like to be in. It's a gift that you can give people. And that helps the motivation piece, because motivation to me gets people acting in a way kind of short term. They have to want to do this for a long time. And we as leaders have to kind of make sure we just keep it in the road, like Tom said. And,
it comes down to where I think I'm not as smart as you guys. I got to keep things simple, but it comes down to where if we want our business to be self-controlled, or we want the outside to control what happens. And you can sit in a meeting like this and you can say all day, like Ron says, we want to be self-control. We want to be the masters of our own destiny. We want to know what we're doing all the time. But there is so much reality in our face all the time. The market's in our face. What's going on? Economic changes and social changes going on, and they're never faster, and so on. We're getting bombarded. So you kind of got to go from what our circumstances are, A to B to C, as I call it. What our circumstances are. If we want to be internally controlled, then B is kind of thinking about that, using our experience, using our thinking, talking, how's our culture fit this, talking with our folks, kind of mulling it around, ruminating, and then you can go to our emotional or whatever practical response, A to B to C. But if we want to be bound by, or if we're not watching and we're working totally just churning away inside the business, then we become externally affected, and we're jumping from A to C. We have circumstances, we have responses. It's, I want to go to Chicago, I get in the car. I don't think about what I know to be true. Okay, get a map, figure this out, plan the trip. I just jump in the car and take off. And that is the tendency. So always we have to remind ourselves internally, okay, let's go from A to B to C here. We forget B and we forget a piece. We forget to use a good sense God gave us about what we're supposed to be doing, and we're just knee-jerking all the time.
You do have to remind people. I mean, I bet you, I will say this in a year, 150 times. Control the controllables. We tend to want to talk about things that we can't control in our companies. So the environment, you know, when you look at what we've all had to deal with, if you can keep people focused on what they can control and influence every day, then you get the movement that you want. And it, you know, it's not one thing, it's a lot of little things. And I mean, to me, it's, you know, we always want to hit the home run. Everybody in this room is competitive. And you look for that pitch. And I really like the process of, you know, hitting a single or two and just consistently doing those things that make a difference a little better than everybody else. And it adds up over time. And that's, to me, what keeps people kind of motivated and moving the growth diet.
But I think one of the things where you have a distinct advantage in that is that most of us know Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, and having that real defining statement about what are we best at. Well, let's use Ritz-Carlton as an example. I just recently read an article on them, and they are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And everything they do, it doesn't have to be a whole lot more complicated than that. Everything they do flows from that. So when they have to, in times when are tough, their occupancies rate are down, where do they cut? You know they're making cuts, but they're probably not making cuts in things that affect how ladies and gentlemen serve ladies and gentlemen. So that's, I think, a key, is really knowing what's the guts of what makes you who you are, and making sure that even those singles, maybe, you know, you can afford to invest in home runs in good times, but you're investing in singles in tougher times, but you know what ballpark you're playing in. And I think it's really important for all of us to really know what that ballpark is. And that's where planning comes into place, even in tough times. The other thing is, I see companies that just clutch. They do nothing. They go dark. They go on hold. It's like they don't want to spend any money. They don't want to have any employees. They just want to, you know, hope to ride it out by cutting expenses. And I don't think that's a winning strategy either. Do you?
No. I mean, you know, for us, I mean, we're still struggling to, you know, we finally got to a cash flow break even. You know, you kind of look at these things where you start making money, and you can't, it's more difficult to stick to, particularly in hard times, how you gain market share there. And go ahead and spend in the right places, and do those things that you know instinctively are the right things to do. And it really gets back to me, and it's always the right person in the right job. Kind of back to this thing, I think Colin said, get the right people on the bus. Well, you know, our banner waves, you get the right person in the right job, and you get them doing the right things, and you get them doing it right now. And once you do that, you know, you can take that in stages, because a lot of times you just need to find the right person first, you know, and let's get them, and then you can direct that. And it's amazing when you do that, and if you don't have the right person, you take action and you do that, and you work that person through, and when people see that, it lifts the whole work environment so that you can be successful. It creates a work environment.